Hey there, everyone. Happy Sunday. Back from vacation and back in my home studio. I want to talk pretty excitedly about the world of crypto, especially concerning Bitcoin with its adoption, and it's expanding quite rapidly, and what that means for the price in 2025 for my Bitcoin price prediction, and what that could mean for 2026 as well, and then, well, into the future. As a matter of fact, in a future video, I would like to put out some harder numbers for projecting where exactly things could go over the next several years for Bitcoin based on what we've seen, and then extrapolating from there and see where exactly it could take us. I'm also going to cover some of the other cryptos that I like best out there. Ethereum, XRP, Solana, SUI is also on that list, and then AVAX I'm going to toss in there as well. We'll run through those technicals. So I want to share a story from you that sort of inspired it all. So I'm not sharing this necessarily as new news, if you will, but I think that it is something that is very much worth us paying attention to. So for this, the headline, 35 companies now hold at least 1,000 Bitcoin as corporate adoption booms. So I read down through this, and I knew that this adoption was happening, but to see the rate at which it's happening is really inspiring, because I do think that we're still very much at the beginning. And I'm going to go all the way through some visuals that really start to make sense of it. So 35 companies as of the time that this was written, whereas it was only 24 at the end of Q1. So what's half of 24? It's 12. Put 12 onto that 24, you got 36. So that'd be a 50% increase just from Q1 into, well, we're in Q3 right now, but we're not largely through Q3. We still have about 2 months to go in it. So that's pretty darn rapid. And I think that some of that is attributed to the regulatory environment changes that we either see happening or potentially see happening, and also a little bit more, I would say, less stigma maybe placed around Bitcoin as a risk asset, and looking at as more a treasury asset that should appreciate over time. I think that narrative is really starting to sell. I think Michael Saylor might actually have a pretty large part to do that as well. And, well, we'll see if that adoption continues. That could actually lead to a virtuous cycle for Bitcoin prices to rapidly appreciate from where they're at right now. And we'll get into that with that Bitcoin price prediction soon. I do want to jump back over here and actually look at some of the charts. So, Ray, your total public companies holding 1,000 plus BTC. So when you look at that and just look at the shape of the curves that we see over time, starting back in 2017, 2018, in Q4 to Q1 where there was nothing, and then all the way until we started to see just a little tiny bit, and then an inflection point as we get into 2020, into 2022 where we jumped up to 10. And then how long did it take us to double? Well, we went, let me see, all the way from the time that we hit 10, which is in Q4 of 2021, up until we hit Q4 of 2024. So we had about 3 years until that happened, until we doubled. And then putting another 10 on top of that. How long did it take? Well, it just took a half a year more for that to happen. So how long is it going to take to double on top of that? Well, it looks like it could be another half year. As a matter of fact, it'd probably even be a quarter year for that next 10 that we put on. You guys can see the shape of this. We sort of had an S curve with a little bit of lull in between as we had some doubt. I'm sure FTX interrupted this curve just a little bit on that one, but now we're starting to see that parabolic shape of adoption come into this, which should be pretty good for the adoption for Bitcoin's prices. And then we can go on along and read this, but I really think the charts do a better service. And instead of looking at the image that they link here, I think it's better if we actually go to the source that they got it from. We'll get back to the distribution graph. For right now, I want to take a look at the images that they had up on screen for you. And here we can zoom up. We can make them real big here. So in the past 30 days, the Bitcoin held in treasuries is up almost 4% just in the last month. And that goes along with the price appreciation that we see as well. Now, mind you, that could also lead to a thinly traded market at some point in time, which could bring some volatility into Bitcoin's prices if we enter a low liquidity state over time. We're going to have to watch and see if that happens. But I do think that the price appreciation is about as certain as we get with these sort of markets. So really, we would need a major sentiment shift. We would need a major disaster in terms of risk assets, if you will, to really see trouble for Bitcoin. And now, mind you, I think that there's several reasons. Besides holding it in treasuries, I do think that one of the reasons that it is turning out to be a bit of an inflation hedge, especially given the debt crisis with the US dollar, and I've mentioned that before in my videos. But taking a look at this, you can see for public companies, almost a million Bitcoin out of the 21 million total are already held by public companies. ETFs and other funds are about 1.5 million on top of that. And for governments, lagging a little bit behind here, 527,000 as well. I think we're going to see more of each of those fella over time, especially private companies are probably also going to start dipping into this. So I would say that we're at a point right now where holding Bitcoin in the treasuries is something that's only becoming fashionable, that it's not already fashionable. So it was sort of edgy at first, sort of chic, and now it's getting more into the, hey, it's just a good idea. It's what you do. And I think that is what we're seeing happening with those institutions, whether we're talking public companies, private companies, or we're talking about, well, ETFs are a little bit of a different story, but then governments as well, with the geopolitical risks that are out there, debt risks that are out there, Bitcoin offering just another alternative outside of things like gold prices and physical assets that you would have out there. So let's put this up here and we'll go over to the entities holding BTC across the globe in 30 days, up 22 more entities holding Bitcoin in their treasuries. So for public companies, if we click on this, we should be able to see that 160, you can actually see the number right there, 12 governments. We have 50 private companies, 11 DeFi and smart contracts, and then ETFs and other, we have 44, and exchange custodians, we also have 4. So public companies, governments, and private companies, the 3 biggest pieces, well, not the governments are the biggest piece of the pie, that's going to be something that's probably going to be pretty tough to rival what we see in the ETFs, especially when we get further adoption of that ETF space. We're going to have to watch and see that, but that is a rapidly growing number, going up 22 in the past 30 days. So what would that take us back to? About 259, so get 22 on top of that. So we're looking at like 7 or 8% gain just in the last month's time. And then when we look at the countries, the US leading this in a large way, 95 entities. Although I look down through them and there's some of them that hold no Bitcoin whatsoever, which makes me wonder why they're on here. So I would say take some of these numbers that you've seen across here with a grain of salt, that they for some reason seem to be a little bit padded. That's something I'm going to have to dig a little deeper into to find out why exactly they would report it. And let me see if I click on this here for the United States, I should be able to give you a little bit of an example of what I mean. So we'll scroll down through. I think Reddit might be at the bottom of this list. There it is. So the number of Bitcoin held by Reddit, $0 million. And then you can see for DeFi Development Core, also 0 Bitcoin held. Whatever UPXI is, 0, Funware 0, and there's a bunch of zeros. But then finally, when we look at this, starting at 45, so there's at least 45 that have some Bitcoin for these institutions being reported. And of course, at the top of that, we have MicroStrategy with 607,000, almost 608,000 Bitcoin, and they continue to accumulate over time. And so they got about 72 billion right now in Bitcoin alone. If we go all the way over to the side, you can see the supply of the 21 million Bitcoin. They have almost 3% of the total supply of Bitcoin held in their treasury. And Michael Saylor is probably has the biggest diamond hands that I've ever heard from anybody to have ever. So this guy, certainly I don't know if there's a bigger Bitcoin maximalist out there who's really done as much as Michael Saylor has for the world of Bitcoin. So I don't know that I'm a maximalist necessarily, but I will say that I'm hugely bullish on the movements that we see and the direction that it seems to be going for crypto in general. So I do want to get over into the charts on this, and then I'll talk about the price predictions and where I think that this is heading within 2025 and then also within 2026. So here we go. We'll go over to the Bitcoin chart. You can see the bull channel that we're currently in. And if I drop to the weekly chart, we'll take some noise out of this. There we go. And you can see the rays that are on here as well that are serving as wild support and resistance. And the fact that this top one right here is the most recent ray that we happen to be sitting on top of as support. I talked about that in a previous video about just how massive that is for us to come down and retest support. We have a resistance, a block of resistance just up above that, up over 123,000. We have to sit on top of that in order to take that next leap, that next bound upward. We have an inverse cup and handle right now that we're working on filling out. The inverse head and shoulders, I think I said inverse cup and handle. Inverse head and shoulders pattern here, that should play out, that should take us to 150,312 per BTC, which is my 2025 5 price prediction for Bitcoin, that if we continue to see this adoption and that pattern plays out with that as well, I think that we're also going to have a pretty darn good market environment in the background as well for the US equities, for example. So given my bullishness on the US markets and on crypto, I think 150,000 by end of 2025, I think is a fairly good thing or a fairly certain thing, as certain as we're going to be in any of these markets. Of course, as much as anybody can know, it's a very reasonable estimate for us to hit that price target. Now for 2026, I think we could easily double that 150,000 and take it up to 300,000 per BTC. So while that isn't the most wild increase, that should be something that also furthers the movement that we see in the prices for the altcoins that are out there. So for my 2026 prediction, by somewhere in there, by the end of 2026, maybe that 300,000, like I said, in a future video, I'll crunch some numbers. We'll see just how much sense a price target like that for 2026 makes. Now, when do we hit that 500,000 mark? Honestly, we could see an acceleration on this where it comes sooner than later if we continue to see that accelerated adoption and that further buying over time by the world's institutions, if you will. So I think there's going to be that FOMO period that hasn't quite hit yet. Now, some people might say we've already seen the FOMO. It's already there. And I'm going to argue that with the rate of adoption the way that it is, I think that we might just be starting to see the beginnings of it. But like I said, I think that we have a ways to go before full FOMO hits and this price just melts up on us and could lead to that blow off top period where we really start to see some wild outperformance even beyond what we have now. So doubling in 2026 beyond that 150,000, I think that we'll see in 2025. So, but let's put that back up there. And let's talk about some of the other things, such as my friend Ethereum. So for Ethereum, I'll take out some of the noise on the chart here for you so you don't have to eyeball up all of it. There we go. And what I really want you to pay attention to is this trend line resistance that we have. We're looking at the weekly chart right now. Right at about, it's just south of 4,000 as we see this. And if I put up the retracements and the extensions back onto the chart, you can also see with those that just north of that is where we run into an area of resistance as well that should peak us out around just north of 4,000. So 4,042 all the way up to about 4,108 per ETH. So for Ethereum, in the near term, we could cap out at that. But if Bitcoin is going to run to 150,000, we could see new all-time highs come to Ethereum as well, as Bitcoin adoption should at first be concentrated to Bitcoin, but then should broaden out to the altcoins, including Ethereum and the others that I'm going to cover in this video. So the all-time high that we had for Ethereum, as per my chart, here's $4,868 per ETH. So I think that we could easily test that again within 2025. As a matter of fact, it could even put us up to this next major area up here that we have around 5,300. And there's any amount of knots that we see up here. So 5,300 is about right up here. So 5,300 per ETH. I think it would be reasonable. There's also a knot of resistance that happens just south of that 5,000. A lot of it coinciding with what we saw over here with this previous peak. So expect a massive rejection. Maybe we come back and test out the low fours before making that next run up and getting all sorts of snags that happen through the $5,000 range. But look north of that into mid sixes and then sevens beyond that as well. So as the years go on, this is something that could also give us that wild performance. Now, XRP is the next one on the list. There we go. We'll ease that out there for you. And right now, as per the Fibonacci extensions on the weekly chart, you see the rejection that we got at about $3.60. Dropping down to the daily chart, you can see more in this retest that we got all the way down here at about the 20-day, sitting on these Fibonacci extension values almost perfectly. So that low was 295.7, so about 296. And if we stretch this out so you guys can see those numbers better, that's exactly what they end up being, right smack dab in the middle is that 296, and that's where we found that support before marching back up. And so there's that buying pressure that we're currently looking at. It could settle more. We got to sit on top of $3.61 for support before we can hit my price target from the descending wedge of 383. My end of year price target, by the way, is $4.63 in 2025 per XRP. And if Bitcoin starts to take a wild ride to the north from where we're at right now, XRP could certainly push up above this price target that I have that's based off the previous all-time high that we've seen. So we could certainly be seeing us closer to that $5 mark rather than that 463 that we have right here. So SUI that I have on here for you, finally pushing up against its previous relative high, we'll call it. It's not the all-time high for SUI, but it did break out of a significant trend line. It broke up above it, so we have resistance broken for that. So let me take down some of this stuff and we'll reset the view so you can really see it. There we go. There's the symmetric triangle that we had. And so we've broken out of the top of it. We had the retest. Now we're pushing up above resistance. If we can manage to sit on top of this, even though right now on a daily basis we're showing signs of selling pressure, we could eventually hit this end of year price target of $7.88 per SUI token for SUI. So absolutely another one that I tend to be very bullish on if the crypto market also continues to be bullish. If Bitcoin can continue to put out that price action over time, the altcoins should be able to follow. Like I said, it's probably going to be concentrated at first, but then it should broaden as we start to see balance come back to that Bitcoin leadership that we have. That Bitcoin concentration should then spread out to the altcoins, as historically has been shown to happen. So for AVAX, moving out from there, Avalanche hasn't hit the $27 mark, but man, it got close. I think that once we get up there, that resistance is coming for us like a freight train. Once again, taking down a lot of the noise for you so that you guys can see the resistance that I'm talking about. We actually had, the important thing you want to pay attention to for Avalanche is that we actually had the retest on the 200-day. The 20 is about to cross the 200-day. That's a bullish crossover. The 50 up above it. We haven't hit the golden cross moment for this yet, but the momentum is suggesting when we look at a weekly basis and a monthly basis, we're starting to see that uptick that says that AVAX should be moving up strongly, even pushing up above this $27 mark that we have here. So let's put those values back up here to see where else we can get caught up. So there's some resistance that happens up above, but we really don't start to get tangled too much until we hit mid 35s and then into the low 40s up above that, when we start to have more confluence between it, these supports and resistances that history has shown us. So could get a bit messy for us, but like I said, if we get that golden cross moment and if crypto continues to outperform, we could see that $40 mark come out for AVAX, and then that leaves us with our friend Solana here. Solana, farewell. There we go. So for Solana, I talked about this area of resistance up here, saying that 196 was the top of that. We broke out the top of it, couldn't hold it as support, sold back down, and now we're trying to find out if this is truly an area of resistance for us, or if we can turn it green and turn it into support. We have to sit on the top of 196.11 in order to make that happen. If we can, the next thing we're looking at is about 219. And once again, if that strength holds out for the rest of crypto, Solana is one of the top contenders. We could be seeing it pushing up here to the $300 mark that we have at the top of the screen here, which I believe goes along with the all-time high prices. Should be able to put in a new all-time high for Solana as one of the top contenders in the crypto space for one of those very fast, very cheap transaction layers. So guys, I hope you liked the commentary that I had here for you. Let me know down in the comments what you guys are following. What do you think about this? Am I on target with what I had to say about Bitcoin and its adoption pushing the price up? Well, just let me know what you think. And then what about the other altcoins that I talked about here? Ethereum, XRP, Solana, Avalanche, SUI. And, well, I know that there's other ones. Some people ask about Chainlink. I'll look into that one as well. And like I said, other cryptos that you're interested in, HBAR, Hype, those are just some of the others as well. Guys, you can also find me over at the Discord. Links in the description. Code word doctor when you sign up for the discount. That offer does expire soon. And there's also some coursework for technical analysis and options trading through Stockmo Academy. Code word doctor is also going to get you a discount there as well. Thank you very much for watching. I am Dr. Stock, Doctor of Education. Remember, my friends, that learning is earning. You'll see you next video.